Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
3,000 books. That could stress some people out.
Yeah.
When did you start? Like, are you a fast reader?
No. I'm until when I was 21,
Okay.
a senior in college, Charlie, I'd probably read half a dozen books not assigned by a teacher. I was not a reader.
Okay.
Something happened my senior year. I picked up a biography on a basketball road trip of Albert Einstein, and page 722. Never lose a holy curiosity. And it's one of my favorite quotes, and I never have. I don't know what happened. I read this biography and I was like, oh, okay. So I don't read fast, and I don't have any kind of photographic memory. But let's make it really practical. So when I read a book, I won't read if I don't have a pen. And then I do 5 things. Level 1 is I underline. Level 2 is an asterisk. Level 3 is I circle it on the page. Level 4 is an upper dog ear, and level 5 is a lower dog ear.
Okay.
So now I can go back through those thousands of books, and if I lower dog ear, I can reread it in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And figure out kind of the level 5 takeaways.
I'm going to have to go back and level. I want you to flip through this, and you can see how I engage with some of your books. I'm a highlighter. I'm an underliner.
Oh,
and,
I like it.
I've done some
Yep.
book clubs with folks with these
Yep.
books, and kind
We
of.
write the same way.
Yeah.
We read the same
But
way.
I'm a slow reader.
Yes.
I'm nowhere near the 3,000.
So here's what's fun, Charlie. The best books have the thickest corner
Okay.
because there's so many dog
Yeah,
ears.
yeah, that's great.
The books that kind of sit on the
Yeah.
shelf uneven. So I love it. This one's well read.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so 722. Didn't Andy Stanley have a backstage pass 722 in his church? Because I think I went
Oh,
to.
funny. They did. They used to do like a 722 gathering or something for
I-
young adults.
When I was helping Charlotte once get started with the
Yeah.
guy who started that, we went to backstage pass at 722. This was
Okay.
16 years ago, maybe something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Huh.
So when you said 722,
Yeah.
what was the scripture verse from 722 about holy curiosity?
Yeah, it's actually an Albert Einstein, and we actually put it on the wall here. It's you'll see
Okay.
it inscribed over there. Never lose a holy curiosity.
Okay. So you got you got this holy curiosity. You started reading all these books.
Yeah.
So just when did you want to be a pastor, and when did you want to be a writer?
Okay. Yeah. So at 19, I'm a freshman at the University of Chicago, pre-law major. And it dawns on me, if you're a pre-law major, it probably means you're going to be a lawyer.
Yeah, probably.
I realized I don't know if that's what I want to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
And I actually started praying about it.
Okay.
And God, what do you want me to do? And kind of a summer of reading and seeking and praying, and there was just a moment where I felt I heard this inaudible yet unmistakable voice where I think I'm called into ministry. But I would have had no idea when or where or even, planting a church or pastoring a church here in DC. But you know what you do? Like, faith is taking the first step before God reveals the second step.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went in. I had a full ride scholarship at the University of Chicago.
For
And
basketball or
yeah,
academic? Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
And I said, you can have it back.
Wow.
And I took a step of faith. I transferred to a little Bible college that doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah. Wow.
And but I look back on that as really a defining moment where I made a hard decision that made no sense on paper,
Okay.
but made all the sense in the world in terms of following God's calling.
Okay. So
Yeah.
pure obedience to the call that
It
you felt
was.
being placed on your life through prayer and discernment.
Yeah, and then from Bible college. So then I'm preparing to pastor a church, but then I end up going to seminary because that's what you do when you don't know what you want to do next. You buy time.
Okay.
And it was then at 22, I'm in seminary, and I just have this moment praying in the chapel where I felt like God said, I've called you to be a voice to your generation. And I interpreted that to mean that I'm going to write books.
Wow.
But it took 13 years.
Okay.
And that's where I would say to those who maybe have a dream that's taking a little bit longer than they originally intended, which is about everybody.
Yeah, yep.
Don't give up on it.
Okay.
But it was about year 10 or 11 that I started despising my birthday, because it was an annual reminder of a dream deferred. So I feel called at 22. Finally, at 34, I just made a decision. I am not turning 35.
So you had a
without
deadline.
a book to show for it.
Okay.
And so setting that self-imposed deadline was huge.
Okay.
At some point, you got to pull the trigger.
Yeah. So that's a great story. So what did that look like? Did you like, okay, I'm getting up early, I'm gonna start writing for an hour every day until I hit 35, and then you get the book written, then how do you find a publisher? And by the way, while you're contemplating that, when you left your full scholarship and said, I'm not gonna do that, did your parents, people tell you you're crazy? What are you doing? Like or they say, we love you, we support you, whatever you want to do?
No, it was a split vote.
Okay.
Some people I love and trust said that makes no sense at all. Like, you can get a free education at the time, the third-ranked university in the country. A lot of Nobel Prizes came out of University of Chicago. So it really, on paper, it didn't make sense, but that is often the case when it comes to following the will of God. And I knew that one of the things I believe is that delayed obedience is disobedience. So I think I could have played out 4 years there. But I think it would have delayed God's plans and purposes. And I think, sometimes you have to put something on the altar. And it may seem like a sacrifice, but I'm telling you, you put that thing on the altar, God's going to give you back something that's so much bigger and better. And it'll feel like a sacrifice, but you look back on it and you realize, I didn't sacrifice anything at all. Like, praise God that I made that decision.
Okay, that's so good. Okay, so now you're 34 years old, and you said, I got to take action. I got to take the first step towards writing this book, because I'm not going to despise my 35th birthday. Okay, what was that process like to go from the action to the reality? And it was In a Pit was your first book, or was it?
So it was a self-published book called ID the True You that I tried to get out of circulation. but once it's on Amazon, it's forever. And so that self-published book, wouldn't you know it, one of the chapter titles was In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day.
Oh, wow.
And so it was kind of the seed bed for some of those future writing projects. And then it was In a Pit that was that first published book that would have been about a year later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has your process changed? Like, what was your process then? Like, how long? And maybe there's some first episodes of this podcast that I'd probably like to take out of circulation. But you got to take the first steps, and then you got to get better and better. You kind of figure out your rhythm. So your rhythm then versus today, can you just tangibly tell us what it's like to write a book? Like, is it lonely? Is it just hard? Is it stressful? Do you have different writing seasons? Do you I'm gonna give myself this period of time? And what was it then versus now? And take us through the evolution of that.
I mean, I shouldn't even bring this up with two guys in conversation with each other, but can you imagine asking a woman if giving birth to her fifth child was harder than the second or the third? It's going to be labor.
Okay.
Well, there are going to be some childbirth pains one way or the other. So the way I look at it is I should be much better at writing 23 or 24 books in. And I think I am. I don't let editors be as involved in the process because I know my voice and I know what I want to say and how I want to say it. Early on, a lot of editing. These days, less editing. But you still have to set your alarm clock. You still have to get through writer's block. You still have to, I mean, this most recent book Please, Sorry, Thanks just came out, I feel fragile, feel vulnerable. Like you wait for those first reviews. Like, is anybody gonna like it? Like, so I don't think you ever get to the point where like that's old hat. So each book is a labor of love, but what I've done is I've really discovered the way that I'm wired. So I think we're very similar. Just hearing about the way you frame things and set goals. And so I need a writing season.
Okay.
Starts on my birthday, which happens to be November 5th.
Okay.
And it generally goes to Super Bowl Sunday,
okay.
second weekend in February. That gives me 3 months.
Okay.
Start with a 3-day retreat, end with a 3-day retreat. And then I do less speaking at the church I pastor, and I do more writing. So what would be a study day turns into a writing day, and I don't take outside meetings besides staff and kind of congregation. And I come out after those 3 months with a book, one way or the other.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're here on 4/13,
Yes.
April 13th, appropriate 4/13. And did this just come out of your writing season, this last one, or was it a different one?
It did. So it would have been a year ago in that writing season. And so what's funny is you write the book about a year and a half before it comes out.
So you finished this one in Super Bowl Sunday 2022.
Yes.
Okay.
Then you walk through kind of 3 or 4 sets of edits, conceptual, right down to line edits, right down to the typeset. Here's how it's going to look on the page. So you get about 4 edits. And part of why I'm okay going through this detail is that 81% of people want to write a book. So 8 out of 10 people listening to this are really curious about how do you actually do it?
Yeah.
And so what you do is you write it, then you go through all these edits, and then by the time the book comes out, you're a little bit bored by it because you have lived in that content like a year ago.
Okay.
And so you almost have to just kind of re-experience it, and then the book comes out, and it's out in the wild, and now it's in God's hands.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.